Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, June the 9th. Let's hop in. We've got a decent amount of news to talk about today, and in the stupidest way possible, I managed to injure my foot rolling over in bed. So I spent most of yesterday staying in bed, not doing anything that would cause me to even sit upright or use my foot at all. It's probably going to be fine, or as fine as anything is, once you reach a certain age and all of your old scars start magically appearing and your entire body just starts to fall apart from the inside out. The good news there is I did manage to play a little bit of Left 4 Dead. There's really nothing to say here. Apparently I won 0 matches in stage 2, so I get a free reward. Apparently I was supposed to have played an arena or made it to stage 2 and didn't play. Oops. I didn't make it to the final stage because I didn't play. Yeah, I may very well have not played anyways. I am doing the last DLC section of Left 4 Dead single player called The Sacrifice, which obviously somebody's going to sacrifice themselves. And they're actually giving the characters like dialogue and conversations where they interact with each other, which is just awkward. And I will say The Sacrifice feels like a better designed scenario than all the previous scenarios. There's just more variety of 3D models. There's slightly better level design, while it still is a very linear point A to point B to point C area. The levels, the first 2 chapters seem to be fairly long. Let's open 2 packs here. But it's still basically nothing. There are exploding barrels in The Sacrifice when there were no exploding barrels in any of the previous scenarios. It's a very limited game by modern standards. I think it's more limited than other 13-year-old games that would have been running on Unity or Unreal Engine. I think you also see 13 years down the line that by making things on the Unreal Engine in particular, a lot of games now are getting remasters and re-releases because it's a lot easier than it would have been. I mean, I guess at this point I can just open them all. I mean, do we do that now? Let's just do it. We've hit enough points where we can figure out how tradables work, and then we'll be done. So a random Wednesday, will. I want to open just exactly enough cards to get to the tradables, not a single pack extra. The bigger good news is, though, while I was lying in bed, I was messing around with my RetroPie GPI case Game Boy, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone build one of those now. There is a, I think it's called a Recall Box or something like that, that uses just a Raspberry Pi 3 or a Raspberry Pi 4 and has 6 buttons on the front face of it, and probably has left trigger buttons and right trigger buttons. It's also just bigger. Like the problem with the GPI case is it's designed to basically mimic the size of a Game Boy, and even though Game Boys were fairly thick, they still are kind of small for your hand placement. That's why almost every modern console puts the buttons on the far left and far right, and like the Switch does. But yeah, I was trying to play A Link to the Past, the Game Boy Advanced version, and it just wasn't running well. The audio was stuttering. So So I've decided to install a new version of RetroPie on it and start over from scratch and make a new build for that device specifically. But after that, I'm also going to then pretty much abandon the device in favor of just running Emulation Station on my PC. Here we have Syed Al Malki saying hi. Yes, open. So he seems to be excited about us opening packs. Alright, well, 18 more packs? Let's do 17 more packs just to be certain. And then we'll do one final pack and see if that does anything special. Oh, they have emojis in the chat now. I didn't realize you could do that. It's been a long time since we've had anybody on the chat, on the live stream chat either. It's always nice to see. So it's incredibly difficult. Frankly, it's almost practically impossible to properly configure and install a modern version of Emulation Station on a PC, a Windows 10 PC. If you were running Debian Linux, then it would be a lot easier, certainly. It's just not software that's designed to run on anything other than system on chips type devices like the Raspberry Pi. But I found a website that gave me a one-line command to put in the command line, which this is how you get a virus, basically, is running a one-liner command to download something from the internet that then runs a bunch of other commands. But I did it anyways, and it, for the most part, worked, with the small exception of the fact that Emulation Station sets itself up in your home directory as period Emulation Station. Any folder that starts with a period is a hidden file or folder in Linux. It's not hidden in Windows. However, I was trying to use a software called Scraper, Skraper, which I guess is Scrapper with a K. And it, for some reason, would not look at the ROMs folder and when there was a period in Emulation Station. So I had to make what is called a symlink. Yeah. In Windows, which you can do, certainly. You open up a command prompt and you type in mklink to do that. And so then I had to basically move the folder from .emulation station to emulation station and link those together, make a symlink at the location of .emulation station to the non-dot version. And then I also had to move it from my SSD, which really isn't going to have enough room for the amount of ROMs that I want to have running. And certainly I'm going back and forth as I am getting this to work. And Sayad says I am from Saudi Arabia, and a bunch of emojis. Or he's sent like 3 single emojis. But yeah, so I had to make another symlink to move the folder and everything to my bigger hard drive. With the Prime Day sale happening, I'm thinking maybe I'll end up kind of breaking with my previous actions and buying a very, very big 12 or 16 terabyte hard drive if one goes on sale. Odds are highly low that nothing like that would go on sale anyways. But having just like one 4 to 8 to 12 terabyte hard drive established as this is where all the realms go might be a good idea. Alright, so we need one more pack, and then we'll be at the tradables, and then we should see what tradables actually do. But yeah, I was able to get Emulation Station working. Does that mean all of a sudden I'm going to start streaming myself playing like A Link to the Past? No. The one-liner installed a lot of emulators on top of Emulation Station, such as you've earned enough card pack points, trade your points for a card. Okay. Ooh. So this very well may be a completely different thing than what I thought it was. What I think is going to happen here is we're going to like Syed says, I always follow you. Keep up doing a great job. Let me make sure my chat will scroll down when if he comments again. Okay. I was thinking that I was going to be able to trade like the second copy or third copy of a card, because we have like 2+2 here, and being able to trade potentially these 2 temporary cards for others would be interesting, and that you could just trade 1 platinum for 1. I think what is actually going to happen here is if I click the trade button, I'm just going to get that 1 card, and that's it. So this would give me a leader, emblem, and card sleeve. So that's probably the one we would want to do. Otherwise, this would just give me an emblem. Alright. So leader, emblem, and trade, and do that. Trade 400 card pack points for the Taya, Prophetess of Creation. So it says, don't forget me when you become famous. Yeah, if I ever become famous, then I would be, I'll probably die of shock if that ever happened. Alright, so this is weird. As it stands, let's see where we are in the cards now. For extras, we have like 2 legendary extras. So we should liquefy that. That gives me a massive amount of vials. And let's go back to the shop and see if we understand this completely. Because I think what we've done is we've lowered the cost potentially to get the one last thing we would need, which would be an emblem here. Otherwise, there's kind of no reason to have this. And frankly, there might be an argument against like having even 3 copies of some of these legendary cards in favor of just trashing them and getting the vials out of them. So is it worth it to potentially buy another 300 packs, 300 times 100, so 30,000 gold for that? No, I don't think so. Okay, well, this explains to me what we should do going forward. Tradables do not work the way I thought they were going to work. I thought we were going to end up getting getting a ability to trade extras of these over for another one of these. That way you could just fill out that complete collection. Where in reality, even hitting that high marker, you're still at the whim of spending more and more money if you weren't a free-to-player to get all the cards. That just does not particularly work for me. What does work, I suppose, is I can now potentially, after today's stream, since I'm trying to have some downtime and let my injured foot rest, I could go here and spend this money to start to craft a bunch of these, although maybe I am not at the point where I should be crafting gold. Maybe I was still at the point where I'm missing some silver cards. Or I could use these vials to specifically try and create very specific cards. I guess the question is, do I want one of everything? And would I want to go and try and create all of these? Which 200 times this maybe would get me 80 single copies of cards. Whereas the tournament decks, when they come out, do seem to succeed a lot better. Yeah, I think we probably need to do a little bit of both. Try and catch up and get one of each of these off screen with the crafting, but stop at about 8,000 points, 8,000 vials. That way, when we have the tournament end this week, I can potentially see if I can make some better decks, because getting better winning tournament decks would certainly help. Let's see, if I was to go back and just see what is the winning deck here, what are the missing cards? Yeah, making a winning tournament deck from a very old experience would be fairly silly. But also, having just like one of these cards just so we can look at it is really where my head is at more. I just want to be able to look at the eye candy or have that as an option. Alright, well, that's as much as we can do now. Going forward on the shop, I will be spending gold on the newest expansion. So the new goal now is to wait for the next expansion to happen before we buy anything more. I'm not sure I pointed this out, but I've done all of this story, so at some point I also need to do like a story catch up, but I'm kind of trying to see if Fate's Trigger is going to be continued or not. We did get a new character, so let's figure out which one of those we've got. We can switch.
Let the games begin.
That's not new. We'll just cycle everything over. Here is our new character, Tio.
I stand at prophecy's end.
Which that was not a bad character to get a leader for.
Are all mine.
I swear by this blade, I'll win.
I'm not sure when Mordecai showed up as a character.
company for a while.
I'll just change everything up. Going
We
one to the
draw
right.
closer. Offer up thy woes.
And then also we had a new emblem. So we can, I suppose, hype up on that. But then we're gonna actually have to start playing some games. I can't imagine, since the Prime Day sale is happening in a week, I can't imagine that there isn't a amount of time, very short amount of time before the summer sale, Steam summer sale happens. The good old games summer sale just started, so I wouldn't be surprised one bit if it's a week or two from now. Then it seems like no matter how hard you try, these kinds of sales like to bunch themselves up. Although, in all fairness, I think I am doing slightly nicely. I've been kind of a good boy, as it were, as far as not spending extra money in the past month or so. Not too much, at least. Of course, I'll blow any progress I've made there as soon as the Prime Day sale happens, depending on what's on sale, really. A lot of it could be absolutely nothing. So what is our mission for today? I was talking about the RetroPie and emulation station and getting it to run on my PC. I'm thinking the PC setup is going to try and be a fairly historically complete, historical reference complete collection type setup. That is the thing that is running through my head. Every single live stream you hear me talk about games not being relevant and just not having any relevancy because nobody ever played them. If I stick to that idea, sure, then I should make a curated collection on my PC. But that's probably more work than just getting everything, frankly. And a lot of it is kind of a pointless endeavor anyways. Like the vast majority of the games will never be played, almost none. Like the Game Boy GPI case that I built it like a year, maybe a year and a half ago, and I've played it for less than 2 hours. It is much more a fidget device to mess with the programming and the configuration than something I really am playing. Bloodcraft or Portalcraft today. So I guess we'll try Portalcraft. Of course, I just changed all the characters, so I guess you have to go by the backgrounds these days. Let's try this Portalcraft deck. So yeah, size is an issue, certainly. I might very quickly find out that a complete collection is more than 4 terabytes, more than 6 terabytes, more than 12 terabytes. Like, once you start to go up and up in generations, I'll probably start with like the oldest generations. Emulation station being built on Libretto only has a certain number of emulators, so there are definitely some emulators that are just not supported. Most notably, and this is where my setup is going to suffer slightly, is I would like the Legends Gamer Pro Fight Stick, whatever, that I got. I'd like that to be able to work on my computer and have a front end that would launch Visual Pinball and Emulation Station. And there is a front end called Pegasus that merges Emulation Station games and Steam games and good old games and I think Launchbox games all together. So it takes 4 separate launchers and merges them down into one launcher and puts its own front end on it, which is great. But it doesn't, at the moment, support Visual Pinball. Frankly, I need to get Visual Pinball installed and haven't even started to think about doing that yet on my computer before I go and potentially ask Pegasus to add them as a source. But yeah, if I could get one front end to rule them all, that would be great. The front end for Visual Pinball, which doesn't, I think, have a pinball front end that I think I want to use, but I'm not sure because I haven't really done any of the research yet, would potentially be a game called Pinup Popper as a front end. So it's like you got emulators, 2 different kinds of emulators. You've got a whole bunch of different ones under the Lib Retro banner, which used to be called RetroArch. And then you have PinMame and Visual Pinball. Visual Pinball uses PinMame to run the ROMs of the pinball. But the ROMs are only half the battle in pinball because you also have to have something that would look like and simulate the pinball table and the pinball moving around and the physics around that. So yeah, you've got PinMame and Visual Pinball, and then you've got a front end for that that's Pinup Popper. Maybe use that front end. There's a lot of options all up and down the chain. And then you have Lib Retro, which you could easily run games on your computer just using Lib Retro without involving Emulation Station at all. This is only coming from a RetroPie setup and wanting to potentially still support RetroPie setups that I'm going through the effort of getting Emulation Station to run on Windows 10. There's a decent amount of theming and setup that would be redundant to start all over again. And I'd say Lib Retro doesn't really have much of a front end as far as organizing and selecting games.
I'm on a different planet from you.
But yeah, so you have the Lib Retro emulators and with its multiple cores, being then using a front end called Emulation Station, and then theoretically I'd like to see the front end Emulation Station and the front end of Pinup Popper to then be used by another front end called Pegasus front end, which that's a lot of front ends, certainly, to just polish things up and get everything on one launcher.
Why would I laugh?
So much so that theoretically I could put this whole setup, which would be kind of a pain in the butt to try and even copy from one hard drive to another, but theoretically I could put that on a Windows 10 image and make that a standalone computer thing that would totally be controllable just by the Legends Gamer fight stick that I got. And you wouldn't have
I get the gist of it.
have to ever leave what is effectively something similar to the big picture mode of Steam. But yeah, a lot of that's going to take a lot of work. A lot of that's going to require convincing people to work together. A lot of that may very well just be too future thinking, and it may be 10-20 years before everybody gets on the same page.
Your beauty is terrible to behold.
There is still a very large disconnect between a decently sized community of people with virtual pinball tables that would also want to play arcade games on that virtual pinball table, or vice versa. Like, it's practically impossible to play a pinball machine on just a PC or a TV that is at the 16:9 ratio. That's not likely to happen.
This invention could be my claim to fame.
I'll get production up and running.
Okay. Let's see if we can kill something here. I need to stay alive for a couple of turns.
Stay away from me.
I get the gist of it.
But yeah, there's a lot of ambition there. Maybe not as much fall through will really happen. There definitely, I feel like, particularly in my old age, I've gotten hyped on projects and worked on them, and then once those first couple of weeks of hype goes away, it's easy to back burner those projects. I need to get my server to be at least booting up enough and sharing the folders enough that I can see if I can use my server for storage, or at the very least, yeah, storage at the very least. Even if none of like the web services that I was trying to work on are set up. And I never really finished that whole setup too, so by the time I do work on my server, it's probably time to update all of the file system, the ZFS RAID array
All systems online.
versions of that software of the device drivers more than software. Get to the new version. Honestly, there's a decent argument that I may have to delete the whole RAID 3 array and start over, because they're on the verge of coming out with versions that support a new RAID array setup called D-RAID, distributed RAID, instead of RAID 3 with 6 drives, which was the setup that I thought was the most efficient. Of course, it's also very silly to say maybe I'll buy another hard drive when I purchase like 6 of them and put them in a server, and then backburnered actually the setup of using that server. So I've got 6 fairly lightly full, lightly used hard drives in my server that need to get more use out of them.
You're a big fella.
There are some things certainly that I know I've purchased and then used and then gotten the use out of them and then been done with them and just been happy with it. But there are also a lot of things, I imagine this is true for most people, where it really feels like you underused them, or that was just a big flop of an idea. And sometimes that's all that it really comes down to, is that you have ideas and you have grand ambitions, and then in the attempt to practically implement them, failure follows. What would I want to give Rush to?
Biceps will
usher in a new age.
Let's see. Just +1/+1 to everything, I guess.
Or not to die.
What? Impossible!
Just go ahead and do that. Do that. Then in return.
Protein time!
Yeah, I remember this deck now. It's been a long time since I played it. Yeah, if we want to talk about waste of money, I fell asleep while playing using my RetroPie GPI case, and it runs off AA batteries, and so I put in regular batteries because my rechargeable ones, which I think a lot of my rechargeable batteries may have gotten thrown away because they were just completely dead at this point. But yeah, I put in regular batteries, and then I fairly quickly fell asleep while it was updating, and then woke up to find the batteries were completely empty, and that sucks, certainly. See if this works.
Rise and shine!
At the end of your turn, put a character in your field.
If I were
Thy little canary. Feeling better? Then come and jam with me.
This invention
So
could
will
be my
this
claim
give
to
me
fame.
a zero puppet if it's not dead?
always cruise.
As the curtain
Setting reflectors to reflect.
That's an interesting thought. So yeah, I burnt through some batteries, and that's not a good move. So do 5. Okay. You need to attack with something. 3 copies of this card. It's probably about the best we're gonna do. So let's play one here. Hit that. Play one here. Hit that. Play one here. Hit that.
Did I overreach myself?
Play this.
Are the brightest stars in the sky.
And I guess in the turn. That's the best I can do. Alright, well. I don't think I specifically picked a new news source, so we're still working with Gaming Bolt as our news source, which Gaming Bolt's in a weird position because it's specifically it's maybe doing half of the work of Gamma Sutra, where I mean not Gamma Sutra, Gametsu, where Gametsu still has a few more Japanese centric games.
Where are you?
I would have never guessed that in trying to find a new video game news source, I would have any real overlap between Gametsu and other sources. I suppose I should mention that Giant Bomb came out and kind of talked about what they're changing up with the evolution of their setup. As far as I understood it, that there's one thing that sticks out, specifically in their announcement. Giant Bomb, the remaining people at Giant Bomb, the people excluding the 3 people who left all at the same time, are really looking to actually get work done, like, and actually do something big. Whereas I think the Giant Bomb East people that left probably didn't want to do the work. This was one of the several theories I threw out as to why 3 people would leave at the same time. Part of the way that Giant Bomb is trying to get work done, however, is by kind of expanding what Giant Bomb is and bringing in, for lack of a better term, not celebrity guests, hosts, I guess might be the way you put it. Commission workers is probably the legal thing you would describe them as. That they are seemingly trying to bring in, they're going to bring in people from GameSpot, which this probably means that there's a merger down the road in 6 months to a year or longer, maybe 2 years, between GameSpot and Giant Bomb, which I think that's fairly inevitable, because then that is a case where just the name Giant Bomb, as much name recognition as it has, also has some problems around it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Giant Bomb as a title is eventually gone. But yeah, they're bringing in GameSpot employees, which either means GameSpot's going away or Giant Bomb's going away in my mind. And they're going to, these commission employees, these GameSpot celebrity guests, are going to come to Giant Bomb and do a bunch of weird things that have never been done before. At least that's how it's being described. Dan Reichert is coming back, so it could be a case that nobody on Giant Bomb East liked Dan Reichert. If that's the case, well then that also might explain a few things. So yeah, it could also be a case that Dan Reichert coming back in some form or fashion to make a new podcast might be doing something. I am definitely noticing that Jeff Grossman, who is going to be on this new podcast with Dan Reichert, and I think also has a new project / podcast or whatever they're going to do. Jeff Grossman is moving himself to be a celebrity at Giant Bomb, which at a certain point that really just does hit the question mark of, isn't he at that level just the boss, and the boss who's making himself a celebrity? Let's see. Summon a puppet. Do this and do this. Okay. So yeah, there's seemingly a lot gonna happen at Giant Bomb, and that's somewhat news. E3 will be the first step, I think, of showing who is likely to start working closer with Giant Bomb, and who's likely to start showing up here and there. And I also know Jeff Grossman is clearly working towards moving, so he's either going to end up moving to to a place outside of California, or he's going to end up moving to a bigger house in California. It's kind of crazy for him to stay in California, but there are still 3 or 4 Giant Bomb employees, I think, that are actually still in the area. I don't know, really. I haven't paid enough attention to see if the engineers had moved out of the area. Okay. This will give me more puppets. This will give me more puppets. This will summon the puppet. This will... Guess you want to do this. You evolve this.
Welcome to the city of nightmares and despair.
Then you play this. And then you summon that, I guess. And then you kill that.
My crumpets.
I guess you kill that. I guess that's as much as you can do. So yeah, that's enough talking about Giant Bomb. That's probably way too much talking about Giant Bomb. Let's see.
Go ahead and play for now, fairies.
Let's play.
My computer was also acting a little funky with Chrome, so we may have some weirdness in that case too.
My blade is autumn.
Let's see, we have a story here. The Coffee Talk creator Toge Productions is offering funding to developers in Southeast Asia. Interesting, I suppose. This is from Gamma Sutra. Let's see, what can we do? Summon a barrier artifact.
Playing toys is fine. Just don't get attached.
And then evolve.
Sleep.
100% string and 0% fluff.
Let's see. There's a job listing for a technology coordinator for child life and expressive therapies in Austin, Texas via Ascension. A video game company retweeted this, I think, but they are looking to increase the use of augmented reality, virtual reality, gaming technology, and DC TV broadcasting, which I suppose DC might stand for direct channel instead of or direct circuit instead of like DC voltage, which that's a interesting job listing to say the least. I don't know if that really has anything too much to do with video games. More and more, I think hospitals will have money to spend on those kinds of things, and kids being in hospitals, it sucks for kids, it sucks for adults. And the amount of technology in hospitals tends to be very unique technology and very old technology. It tends to also be incredibly boring technology. I would argue there is a very high chance that hospitals should be increasing their technology as far as having better record keeping systems and better better communication systems in general. But
Let's speed things up.
I suppose it's probably cheaper and easier just to hire somebody to set up some Xboxes. Let's see. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article here. Siberia developer Microids has opened up a new Lin studio to create adventure games. They're known for the Siberia franchise, but they also made the ABC Murders game a few years ago, like 2016. So maybe they would make another Agatha Christie game at some point. Maybe, maybe not. Like, I think there was enough quality in ABC Murders to justify them continuing that series, particularly if you see how many Nancy Drew games there are out there and how many Sherlock Holmes games are out there. Hmm. 3 damage. Or evolve.
Should have been quicker.
To die or not to die.
Gamma Sutra has an article. Stillfront Group acquires the Idle Mobile RPG Crush Them All from Godzilla B. Godzilla B, I guess is how you pronounce that. So, the Wildworks community manager Angela Kimsey has died. Of course, I don't know Wildworks, but she did work as a community manager at WB Games Boston and EA. Of course, community manager can mean a lot of different things. I assume a community manager in this case means that she was heavily involved in managing and having community events. That would be my guess. Is that she would have the big shows and all that. But community manager in my mind also could easily be somebody that was just a moderator on a forum and not really anything else besides that. Of course, not understanding what her job title means doesn't have anything to do with the fact that she's passed away. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Panic has unveiled Pulp, which is a free no-code tool for creating playdate games. Which, okay, that's probably what you would want for the playdate. But the problem with the playdate in general is that I think it's an incredibly expensive device. Also, this playdate looks incredibly larger than what it should be. It seems like there's the playdate and then some kind of adaptive speaker device going behind it, but then also some plastic container behind that. This is such vaporware. Like the playdate, see, when you see the distance of that knuckle, that's about how long it should be. And while this has the Sony Sharp black and white pixel display, which is interesting, it doesn't really seem like it has anything else. And I don't know if this crank really on this model is actually a crank, or if it's only a like 180-degree turning device. So yeah, I still have to really question whether this playdate's going to be anything. Apparently the programming is just going to be done in a Java browser, which the support on programming is fairly expensive. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fairly limited amount of things you can do as far as programming on day one, and then you find it never really changes. That was an interesting shot. Can we find that shot again and pause on that? Where it showed the inside? Because that would be another factor. Let's see. Tiny little black and white screen. It really is like the Virtual Boy, though, in the sense that it's black and white in a world that that now demands color. So the screws on the front are specifically hex screws so you can take it apart. Okay, so you have a fairly small, but actually fairly large for its entire enclosure, candy stick or stick of gum battery. You have a Bluetooth circuit here that seems to be colored out or colored over. You've got a system on the chip here. Maybe some flash memory here, but maybe flash memory there. Got the screen connection, and then you've got the USB, and then you've got what maybe just magnetic sensors reading the crank then instead of a potentiometer or anything like this. This chip probably connects to the Wi-Fi, and you can see the Wi-Fi antenna there. That might be an internal connection or an LED. No, nothing here telling me that there's a that there would be a like compass or GPS or temperature sensor or anything else. Like if anything, it looks like it's fairly empty. As the board here, like seems like there'd be plenty of room for something else there. And then this connection might mean that you could connect a camera to it at some point or a secondary screen to it. The antenna being in the middle here is not gonna get signal blocked by like these screws or anything, so that's a decent place. Although you do also have the antenna right next to the power lines, which normally would be a problem. I don't know if it would mean anything in the Playdate's case. But yeah, this whole thing is just sold on the crank mechanic. Also, there is a third button up here and a speaker and a power button at the top. Problem though is that the Playdate is like a ridiculously expensive device. $179, slightly over half the price of owning a
Activating system interface subroutine.
Yeah. Slightly over half the price of a Nintendo Switch for a black and white handheld console that will more than likely have less than 30 games ever made for it in its entire life. It's really crazy. I would definitely suggest getting a RetroPie GPI case before getting this, but that's not really the comparison at all. So yeah,
just as well.
It looks like maybe it has an inductive charger. Or maybe that's just a dock.
Wind, grant them courage.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to... But yeah, there's better things, certainly, to spend your money on than the Playdate.
It's a judge versus, not vices.
Welcome to the city of hopes and dreams.
Activating system interface subroutine.
Begin.
See if I can actually try and win.
And a one, and a two.
Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article. Tiny Build has bought Streets of Rogue developer Doghelm for $6.5 million deal. Alright. We'll jump around here. Gametsu says the 3D horizontal roguelike action game Loopmancer has been announced for consoles and PCs. Do we have a
Wind, grant them courage.
video here? Yes, we do. Yeah, I think we've already kind of seen some of this, but maybe not too much of it. Yeah, we have. May very well once again end up talking about a lot of things we'd already seen and talked about. Well, let's see what we can do there.
As master wishes. Sleep. Relinquish your life to master.
1, 2, 3. Let's see. Gamatsu has the Capcom E3 2021 showcase for June 14th. I was surprised to see that the Game Boy Advance version, at least maybe the Australian release of Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past, that re-release, updated version, which that game has just been re-released and updated on the Switch, so theoretically I should just buy a Switch and buy that game and play it on that. But it was published by Capcom, which seems very weird. You would think that that would totally be an in-house Nintendo thing.
Are the brightest stars in the sky.
But
Sorry, but there's nowhere you can run.
not the case.
Except harmony. There's a reason I'll keep pulling this trigger. I won't miss. You crusty horseshoe.
Of course, the Game Boy Advanced version of A Link to Past also has the Four Swords multiplayer adventure, which you definitely would have to jump through several hoops to get
Your mission is to
the
come back alive.
4-player multiplayer to work while emulating those games. It is doable to a certain extent. They have made progress in that direction, but it is not. It's not intuitive or easy. Plus, you pretty much need 4 people willing to play. But you would have the advantage of, with newer technology, of having that run wirelessly. The showcase is going to feature the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles and more. Monster Hunter Stories 2, Monster Hunter Rise, and Resident Evil Village. The Copyright Lawyer YouTuber, well, the main biggest one that I imagine there is on YouTube, went over the case as he understands it against Capcom as far as them potentially stealing the images and textures of items and textures in particular from a artist who had published those in a book, and it had come with a CD-ROM, and that they were supposed to license it, and she's claiming that they didn't license it. And some of this is coming out because Capcom was hacked and their information was released. But certainly that might explain why we've never seen an RE4 remaster so far. Of course, it also gives them a great excuse to remake RE4 and just not use any of those textures and do it in a new engine too. But I was of the impression, and there's some problems with her case according to the copyright lawyer on YouTube, that if somebody uses your copyrighted work to create some derivative work, then all the profits of that derivative work theoretically would go to the original copyright owner. It seems like that didn't come up, so I don't know where I had heard that. Seems like I had heard it from a copyright lawyer, but maybe this is a different law of a different time, considering when these things would have been created, or maybe there's just a reason why that would not be applicable in this case. But as far as the copyright lawyer seems to think, the only copyright that was registered was a copyright for the book in its entirety and the collection on the CD-ROM of the textures, and there wasn't a copyright filing of each individual texture / photograph, and as such, the copyright seems to think that even if he does seem to lean that it seems like Capcom did blatantly violate copyright there and steal the art, but he seems to lean towards the idea that literally is only going to get her $150,000. And one of the remedies she's asking is for all games to be destroyed, which might make Resident Evil 4 no longer available for purchase on the digital storefronts, and might remove probably wouldn't remove any copies of any Resident Evil 4 game on any shelves, because those long since would not be really capable of being recalled. No used GameStop or anything is going to have an inventory saying, oh yeah, we have a new copy or even used copies of Resident Evil 4 that they'd be willing to send back and destroy. So yeah, if this case goes further, then I think she's not really going to get as much of a reward as I thought she might. Although this is incredibly highly embarrassing for Capcom, and it does feel like they could easily say, whether it's true or not, that this was one rogue employee who is acting outside of their instructions. And so they could almost certainly just blame an employee. It would be interesting to see if maybe there's a Japanese copyright of the book or the photos, and then this falls under Japanese law, but then why would the lawsuit even begin to be placed in U.S. courts?
Today we'll lift some heavy scriptures.
And I suppose a win, if you take it all the way to win, in the U.S. might very well be precedent setting enough that they start doing the same lawsuits in other countries, because Resident Evil 4 had been released in so many it's been released in almost every country. Alright, let's see if this works.
You will atone for wasting my time.
Okay.
Begin.
See if we can
Sheer hubris of opposing me. What's your price?
play this,
And that concludes today's sermon.
then end the turn. Now, I normally wouldn't bother to cover an article like this from Gaming Bolt. Mass Effect Legendary Edition Guide, all decisions and choices in Mass Effect 1. But in this specific cases, this does probably help a lot of people who would want to have a better experience on the second time. This also highlights with each of these paragraphs how many decisions really matter in the first place. Which the first Mass Effect game in particular, I think, was very much around the idea of the Paragon versus the Rebel settings and ideas. Yeah, seems like a decent amount of game affecting decisions, like 10 or 20 of them. Let's see. -10 to an enemy. Destroy that. And
All I need's an opening and you're toast.
play that. Play that. And play that. That was probably a bad card to play. According to Gaming Bolt, F1 2021 will run at 4K 60 frames per second or 1440p at 120 frames per second on PS5 and Xbox Series. For those kinds of articles, I'm not even going to bother to show them off. Let's see, they have one Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart showcases new dimension-tearing weapon, hover boots, and more. I guess this game is still in development. It kind of felt like the game had already come out. So, I think we may very well be just a week away from that that game to come out. It is video game news to say that the itch bundle for Palestinian aid has passed its 500,000 fundraising goal. So we'll leave it at that and add no editorialization in any direction either way if we can. Two puppets in your hand.
Biceps will usher in a new age.
Okay. And I guess we just end the turn there.
Protein time!
Let's see, Game of Citra has an article here. Apple's new object capture feature will let AR developers turn photos into 3D realistic 3D models. That's an interesting idea, frankly. We should have been to that idea quicker. There is also a thing, certainly here, to get back to that previous story, that if you're capturing something that's very generic, like a chair, I doubt somebody could claim they have the copyright to the texture or the design or the method of development of a chair. Or if you're capturing something that is in public domain, like a very old chest, that is yours to do with. You own the copyright for that, theoretically. unless Object Capture claims the copyright for using that software. And even if someone was standing right next to you and made the exact same picture of the exact same thing, they wouldn't be violating your copyright, and you wouldn't be violating their copyright by both of you using it. So
Where can I find inspiration?
Sleep.
that very easily could make a situation where you're having object scouters run around and finding objects to 3D scan versus paying artists to start from scratch and try and make a
I need rest.
try and make something that looks similar to an object.
Power of mortality.
Although in a lot of cases it probably still wouldn't be the right way to go, because if you need a chest, you can just go to the Unreal store or the Unity store and get a chest and start from that base concept. So I imagine what you'll start to see is a rush of people using object capture to make objects that then they turn around and try and sell to other game developers or 3D modelers.
I bring unto you serenity.
This one's for my family.
See, Gamma Sutra has this article blog using Ink and Unity's timeline to make Wayward Strand, which this is heavy computer programming stuff, so I don't want to jump into the weeds with it. I wouldn't even be able to do it. Like, I haven't ever tried to use Unity, but it definitely looks like a very complicated software that I would need a good 6 months to 3 years working with before I even felt like I was competent enough to really speak about its features. I definitely see when they talk about it that it looks interesting. I'll say that this looks interesting too as far as the animation style, but that might not really mean anything. As a video game critic, I can pretty much tell that Unity is a industry standard software because of the fact that a significant number of gamers games are made in it, and nobody's coming out and complaining horribly about Unity. And compare that to the Source engine, where basically nobody is making anything in Source 1 or Source 2, including Valve themselves. Let's see. Gamma Sutra says Phoenix Games nabs a stake in Midoki, along with the rights to the mobile RPG Knighthood. So another merger / acquisition. A game called Rollers of the Realm Reunion has been announced for PC. Is this that half pinball, half RPG game? I remember seeing this game, and I just don't think it played particularly well as an idea. Yeah. And I'm not sure there's really a concept that even makes sense. Having a pinball game, but then also having kind of a storyline driven goal system seems fairly crazy. Like, pinball does have a goal, but also pinball is fairly open-ended to allow you to just enjoy your life and play the game, play the pinball.
Whoa, so there never was a mystery?
One would hope that Rollers of the Realm Reunion is it's not even a remaster, is it? It's a sequel. Well, maybe as a sequel it could improve some of its concepts. There are a couple of pinball games that virtual pinball game, at least one that I can think of, that have RPG elements to them. A lot of them kind of do. Junkyard is a real pinball game that has item collection in it, so that levels you up. And then I'd say almost a vast majority of games have a table multiplier or ball multiplier, which would be a skill increase.
Why would I laugh?
Only one that I can think of has a character selection element to it, where you can have different character classes. There's a decent number of good real-world pinball tables that have fantasy themes to them, of a sort or sense. Let's see. Kimetsu says the Eternal Castle remaster is coming to the PS4 on June 24th. Is that what it said? June 24th? Yeah. This is another one of those games that, like, I remember kind of hearing about, but then they stopped talking about it. This is a very visually distinct game in that it is designed to look like a CGA game, and most people don't even know what CGA graphics are, let alone have any nostalgia for them. They're pretty awful. CGA, the way it looks there is not even the way it's supposed to look. It's supposed to actually look very good if you put it on a TV, an old CRT monitor. But if you're looking at it on a computer, it doesn't look right. And never did.
I get the gist of it.
Let's see. Gamatsu says Alex Kidd in the Miracle World DX. Greetings for the Miracle World trailer is now out. Let's see what that looks like. Alex Kidd is a adventure game from the looks of it. Looks fairly kid friendly.
Strikes you dead.
Be gone.
Let's see.
I wouldn't take the high ground for you.
Apparently the East Asia Summer Showcase happened on June 8th. Although I don't recognize any of these games, so I don't know what happened here as far as the games they talked about. Yeah. I totally don't recognize any of these games. Like, seriously, not a single one strikes my attention. Maybe these are games that are gonna get more coverage later. Okay, can I play this and then play something that's 3? This,
You'll find
this,
gizmos like this every millennium.
then end the turn.
Will strike twice.
Yeah, these are all some of the things they talked about. A game called Omen of Sorrow is coming to Xbox One in 2021. Looks like it's a fighting game. a game called Trigger Witch. It launches in July. Bet none of these have trailers. A game called Golf Club Wasteland has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. This is all from Komatsu. The idea of golfing in a wasteland is an interesting idea, certainly.
Impossible.
I mean, as pointless as golfing is, it just highlights the pointlessness if you're golfing in a post-apocalyptic world. The problem with this, I think, more than anything, though, is that this really just feels like a Crazy Golf clone with a unique visual aesthetic to it. But Mario Golf Rush was announced, so yeah, that's gonna be an issue. Let's go ahead and hit this. Like that.
Sleep.
You'll find gizmos like this every millennium.
So yeah, I would be much more interested in playing Mario Kart Rush than any other golf game. I mean, not Mario Kart, Mario Golf Rush. Old school style shooter platformer called Frogone has been announced for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC.
Fool.
Let's see. There might be something to this, but this also could just be a very generic platforming game. It looks particularly low polygon, so that increases the odds of me potentially just dismissing it completely. I just don't think low polygon is a art style that I could appreciate if you were to try to sell it as an art style instead of just admitting that you didn't bother to put enough polygons on here. Alright, well I'm tired of playing Portal Craft. Let's try Bloodcraft at this point. According to Gaming Bolt, Final Fantasy VII Remake integrated episode Intermission is roughly 9 gigabytes in size. Just gonna read out some of these. Let's see. Riders Republic will receive a update at Ubisoft Forward. Assassin's Creed Valhalla future content will receive details at Ubisoft Forward. These are announcements of announcements. The Capcom showcase we already talked about is set for June 14th.
This one's for my family.
Let's see. Scarlet Nexus is not planned for an Xbox Game Pass at this time, according to Bandai Namco. There was a rumor that it was going to come out day one on Xbox Game Pass, which did not sound like anything that would make any sense to me. Like, it would not get more people to sign up for Games Pass, nor would that particularly push more people to play Scarlet Nexus as a Japanese RPG. If anything, it's leaving money on the table. Gaming Bolt does already have the review for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, so that game must have come out or must be very close to coming out, but I'm not going to read reviews of websites anymore in an effort to save time.
I won't hurt you.
See, I ended early
Too much.
last stream, so I have a lot of things left over. Chivalry 2 is now available.
The uncharted desert
Let's see.
awaits.
Gaming Bolt has Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker producer and director discussing Reaper Job and a male VR development, which I guess you can read that article if you're interested. 2 damage to everybody.
and suffering are what I live
As promised.
Yeah. Omen of Sorrow is coming out on the Xbox One. Edge of Eternity is out now for PC. Post-launch roadmap has been revealed. Edge of Eternity is the Final Fantasy looking game. Yep. Do that.
Mankind's tenacity will exterminate you. Mankind's tenacity will exterminate you, vermin.
Well,
Do
on to
that.
the next project.
Pity is for the weak.
There.
As
Miss
promised.
Check there. Apparently Trigger Witch looks like this. I was not expecting it to look like that based on its artwork. It's a twin stick shooter.
Be gone.
I've been keeping this.
Here we have a
in
game
reserve.
on Steam. Let's go through some of these called The Corruption Within, which looks like a horror point and click adventure game. It is $8.99 English only. I guess I'll have to put it on the fall list since I'm a sucker for those kinds of games. Okay. I could play this, but then I couldn't play this. And
As promised.
I think what we want to do is just
You don't
hit
belong
this
here. I'm not afraid of the light. You
and
don't
hit
belong
this.
here.
Finish the job.
No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle is out. So, yeah. Unless this plays just terrible as a PC port, this almost certainly is making its way to my wish list. It's already on the fall list. Also, No More Heroes 1 is out. And again, unless this is a completely terrible port, this is going to be high on my wish list. Honestly, if somebody gifted me this game right now, I would be willing to start playing it even before reviews happen. $17.99. It's probably about the biggest discount you're going to get. It would, I think, be fairly hard to play both No More Heroes 1 and No More Heroes 2 in a row and then be still hyped to play No More Heroes 3, which I think is probably maybe a couple weeks away from coming out on Steam. So, yeah, I probably should pace myself. I'd be willing. It would be very smart for me to potentially wait till a sale to get No More Heroes 1, play it, and then wait 6 months, and then wait for a sale and play No More Heroes 2, and then wait for a sale for No More Heroes 3, and take 6 months breaks in between each of those games. We have a game on Steam called The King's Cards, which looks like nothing. Let's see, $4.99 English only.
Mankind's tenacity will exterminate you, vermin.
Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Rise Eternity, which is a tactical RPG. And some of the artwork looks nice, but a lot of it also just looks like top-down pixely graphics. And the gameplay looks same old, same old. $17.99, bunch of languages. What just happened here?
Go ahead and play for now, fairies. Let's play.
I have some kind of about box open all of a sudden. The computer is just acting weird. Let me risk a lot here and open up the magnifier and see if I can see. Oh, okay. Alright, I know what happened. Hopefully this doesn't crash the stream. Left 4 Dead just crashed, which sucks because I was in the middle of a level, but I figured Left 4 Dead definitely has a memory leak issue where it runs out of memory when streaming.
I won't hurt you.
Well, that I did warn that there was a chance it was going to crash, and then I would just load back into that section. It doesn't change much, really.
My blade is autumn. I am the fallen leaf. Like a fallen leaf, breach of contract, huh?
I'm not afraid of the light.
Let's see, what do we want to do?
Mankind's tenacity will exterminate you, vermin.
I won't hurt you. Too much.
Sorry, I went quiet there. Yeah. According to Gamma Sutra, 62% of UK adults played online games during the pandemic, says a UK regulator. Which honestly, that just means 62% of all UK adults play games at all, because the pandemic went on for. No, let's be honest here. The pandemic is still going on. Like, there's plenty of countries that it is completely not under control, and there is a lot of people that are. It seems like almost the vast majority of people now are just deciding that they can pretend and wish away COVID-19 like it just is just a bad thought or something. But yeah, during maybe the lockdown would have been a better way to describe it.
You don't belong here.
The 62% of UK adults played online games, which feels like that would just be everybody. Yeah. I suppose there may be a small percentage of people that don't play online games at all, but do play games. I imagine in the next 10 years, the percentage will be up to 75-80% percentile. It's very crazy for somebody to not play some kind of game on a fairly regular basis. Like, at least once a month as far as video games. At a certain point, you're actively avoiding playing video games. If you're not playing video games of some sort.
Fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
There we go. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Ubisoft will transition to a hybrid work system after the pandemic. So here you have a different article saying the pandemic is still going on. Which, alright, I don't want to rant about the pandemic, but yeah. A romance visual novel, Air, is coming to Switch this summer in Japan. Which, okay, we're still getting visual novels. And the art style is kind of going back on visual novels seem to be about 10 years behind what animation styles as far as TV and movies are. And I don't know if that's specifically because they are. I don't know if that's specifically because of nostalgia or if that is because they are just old school animators. Right, well, I guess this could evolve for 0 points.
Scatter like the blossom.
If you want me to hurt you, just say the word.
Do that.
You owe me an apology. I'm gonna scoop
Just
out
hit
your
this.
head. How dare you? Get ready to plump. Dare you? I've got your party invite right here. Hey, let's play.
Fruit flies.
It was a smart idea for me to take a break yesterday anyways. My voice was getting worn out anyways, and I can feel it now. It's starting to wear out.
Sleepy little flower, aren't you?
Gametsu has a new school RPG, Monarch, launching October 14th. This is developed by Lancarsi and it's been updated.
Breach of contract.
So let's see what the update part of this is. First, screenshots. Which, okay. Interesting, they're using Imager on Gametsu. They have not been using Imager up until this point. They've been doing their own little slideshow, and it's worked pretty badly. I would say Imager is better. But I would say if I am going to potentially see more and more Imager things, it probably would be nice to be able to block some of this. But I guess you maybe can't, because that seems like that is all one thing. Yep, it's all one thing. Let's see if we can do this.
This whip is an extension of myself.
Let's defile the battlefield. I
Hit
love
that one.
the chaos.
Hit that one.
My crumpets.
And lose.
Like the moon on the water's surface.
I think Imager is kind of an example of a service that could use improvement, but is also doing something that only a few other photo hosting sites are doing well. Like there's room for more competition, but then also there's probably not a lot of demand for competition. Gametsu has the Famitsu review scores for issue 1697. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart gets a 37 out of 40, which is a fairly high score. 3 9s and 1 10. That's a very, very high score.
A pointed sword deserves a pointed response.
Here we have a game on Steam called the Indestructible Moxie Boxy, which is apparently a twin stick shooter. By the art style, it does not really feel like that. Yeah. $10.99, English only. Just not feeling this. This feels like this should be some kind of kid-friendly adventure platforming game, not a twin stick shooter. See, here we have a game called Slime Labs, which looks like an asset flip garbage game. $9.99, English only. Here we have a game on Steam called Freddy Frog. I did not curate anything I opened today, although I probably should have. $2.39, English only. Again, none of those making it to the follow list. did not want to actually play either one of those, then guess we'll play this. Here we have a game called Tram of Wishes, which looks like it's a hand-drawn
Let's play.
story simulator. Interactive fiction is what it's described as. It's free, it's English and Russian, it's labeled as a short game. Check it out if you want to. I imagine it's not really worth your time.
Take only what is necessary.
What do we have here?
Let's see. Listicles. Do I want to click on listicles from Gaming Bolt? Nope, that's a offense, certainly. Gaming Bolt does have all the decision and choices in Mass Effect 2, which again, I normally wouldn't cover that. But, and of course these would be spoilers.
Let's play.
We can scroll down here though and try and see how many options and story changing choices there really are in Mass Effect 2, because it was implied that there was a lot, but honestly it doesn't feel like there's much more than in the first game. And since so much of the second game centers around that big ending and loyalty missions affecting that big ending, a significant amount of Mass Effect 2 seems like that there's actually less random video game stuff and more just focused stuff.
You must become a demon to kill a demon.
Okay,
What do we have here?
hit that.
Rot and ravage, dear forest.
See, I did see this article. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart dev team members speak on a crunch-free environment. The game designer claims he didn't crunch once on the title. This feels like this is a
Demons.
this is a narrative that is being put out as a concerted effort. And certainly, I guess you could potentially actually achieve that, but I feel like there's definitely some employee somewhere that felt pressured to work a little bit later, a little bit harder, a little bit longer.
Miasma pervades all.
And as bad as the idea of crunch is in general, there is, I think, some people that are
Entered the lightless
just
domain.
not as good at their job. They're just slow in general, so those people may have to work longer. It would be nice, frankly, if you could, instead of having crazy deadlines, you could just have jobs where you were given reasonable deadlines and even the slowest of workers could accomplish their goal. But yeah, it's like a test in school. How many students finished a test at the exact same time? There's people that finish 5 minutes early. There's been people that finish 5 minutes late if they were allowed to. And there's some people that would be working on the test for the rest of their life if they were allowed to. Genshin Impact has update 1.6. You can check it out. The info on Gaming Bolt if you're interested in that. I also have a Guilty Gear Strive interview talking about the risk system, stages, transitions, multiplayer, and more. if this game is not out right now, it's going to be out in a couple days. And we sure are going to be seeing a lot of ads
Life's a gamble.
until
May
I
as well
either
have fun.
clean up Game Bolt and start getting the U-Block Origin to actually block a lot of that garbage, or
Will it be crimson
I
red?
choose another
Me.
news source. Let's see. According to Game Bolt, Naughty Dog is recruiting devs to work on the studio's first standalone multiplayer game. Which, okay.
Go ahead and play for
Playing
now.
Left 4 Dead, the idea of a standalone multiplayer game, though, definitely does not sound intriguing or interesting. It's like,
My blade is autumn. I
even
am
when
the
I
fallen
did
leaf. Like a fallen
enjoy
leaf.
Left 4 Dead, playing it as it came out, like day one, it got boring pretty fast. Let's see. If I actually survive this, I'll be surprised. Here we have a game on Steam called Infinite Brick Breaker, which just is a Arkanoid type game. Hit a brick a number of times and you break it.
Like the moon
59
on the
cents,
water.
English only. Let's see if we can find another Bloodcraft game deck. Here we have a game on Steam called VR Cute VR Cute Tanks, Girls and Dinosaurs, which is clearly just an asset flip garbage game. $1.19. Whole bunch of
Pointed
languages
sword
allegedly.
deserves pointed response.
And it
Time for me
requires
to prove
VR.
myself.
Yeah, I know. Still don't know why those things are allowed on Steam. Here we have a game called Warplane Inc. And while this does seem to have a decent amount of heads-up display and maybe controls, it looks like it's probably a mobile game and isn't too far from being just a standard side-scrolling shooter or maybe even Flappy Bird clone. It's got some visual polish to it, although this doesn't make sense that there'd be a bleeding eyes teddy bear in the background. Thought this would be a hyper-realistic World War II simulator. $4.19, bunch of languages. Yeah, just not enough there to interest me. Next we have a game on Steam called Ninja Ken, which looks like a platformer. There might be enough here to put this onto the follow list. This could be nothing, certainly. Could just be a platformer. But unlike a lot of other platformers, and maybe I'm lowering my standards here, there are actual enemies. And it seems like there's actual gameplay. $3.19, English only. This is one of the ones where either I've been logged out of Steam. Yep. Or this was an old tab. It must have been an old tab. Here we have a game on Steam called Universe Generator, which is tagged as full motion video. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything good.
Ready to pounce.
Looks like static images, basically. Free. English only. I guess if most of the games, though, are not good enough to make it to the follow list anyways, then it doesn't matter if I'm logged in or not. Here we have a game called Fuzz Dungeon, which looks like kind of a claymation weirdo characters. But I can't immediately dismiss this because it's weird enough to feel like it has an artistic style to it. Yeah.
Meow-wee. Ready to pounce.
There might be something here. Although it does seem like it's jumping all over the place as far as different types of games. $3.99, English, allegedly full audio. Is enough. Yep, that's one of those examples of a game that just visually looks so unique that it deserves a little bit more scrutiny. Here we have a game called The Last Tank Fight, which just looks like a mobile phone game of a tank shoot 'em up or something. $2.99, English and Chinese. Maybe it's not a mobile phone game. I don't know why I thought it was. It kind of looks a little weird in a couple different ways. Here we have a game on Steam called Backbone, which is already mixed. Well, that stinks, because I think I was going to put this on the follow list from the looks of it. 2.5D Detective Studio, 68% positive. What's the problems? The writing of this game completely falls off during the third act. The stealth and puzzle mechanics are completely forgotten after the prologue. $25 for a game that can be finished in about 4 hours. It's also a steep price to pay, even though there are many types of different dialogue choices. The outcome ends up being the same, and there's way too many questions left unanswered. Alright, so just a disappointing experience overall. Well, that's a shame, because visually this would have convinced me to give it a try. How do you end up spending all of your time on the art and come out with a game that has good art and nothing else? Right, so this one can attack twice, so we want to buff that one up. See, if I evolve this, then that would be an 8, so theoretically if I could get this to attack twice, it could do 16 damage. Here we have a game called The Pirate King, and this looks like this is Luffy de Lupe, I think is his name's Straw Hat from One Piece. But the actual game just looks like a slightly polygonal survival low effort game. $11.99, English only. I guess it is also worth mentioning, unless something has changed in the One Piece manga, which last I heard was still going on. The main character of One Piece is trying to become the Pirate King, not that he is the Pirate King. Unless I'm misremembering the story. Rush. That won't do anything. That won't do anything. This will do everything. Okay.
Scatter like the blossom.
Where should I drop this light? Oops, my
Just
hand
hit that,
slipped.
I guess. Next we have a game on Steam called Geometry Bricks, which just looks like a block pushing puzzle game of no real interest. $2.99. Let's see. Type Moon Times Volume 2 is set for June 10th, featuring Tsukumi, a piece of blue glass moon.
Think strong and carry
This
on.
is a visual novel announcement. It's a remake of visual novel. Let's see. According to Gamatsu, that was a Gamatsu article too. Battlefield 2042 has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It's due out October 22nd. 2042 is set in the future, certainly. So, the Battlefield universe, I feel like it already been set in the future. So, it's kind of painting itself into a corner as far as what the world in their universe is going to be. It seems like they're trying to still make it seem mostly like a standard military shooter game, though. Well, there's a giant hurricane, a tornado grabbing them for a cutscene. I'm sure that's all that will be. Let's go ahead and play this. Nope, that was stupid. Should have played this. I doubt I'll play Battlefield, so I'm not particularly interested in talking about it. Gaming Bolt says The Evil Dead, the game, will premiere gameplay footage at the Summer Game Fest Kickoff Live. This seems to be a collection of random characters from the Evil Dead movies more than the Evil Dead TV series. Maybe this character is from the TV series, and of course Ash is in all of them. Much like the Friday the 13th video game, though, there is a real question as to how much fun you can actually make around the Evil Dead series of stories to make it a video game. See, here we have a game called Outpost Engineer on Steam, which looks like it's a Factorio ripoff. $19.99. Not making it. Here we have a game called Cat Simulator Meow, which this thumbnail makes me suspect that this isn't as polished as I'd like it to be. I actually would be fine with the idea of playing as a cat, and particularly in a barn field area. That's probably a better environment to play. It's a little weird. There's some other animals too, but yeah, so a city environment probably would look better for a cat simulator game, and the actual game seems to be just wandering around in an open environment and a few little mini games of endless running. Yeah, and Flappy Bird. Yeah, this is a low effort collection of games, of mini games. English and Chinese, $2.79. Edge of Eternity is on Steam. It is rated very positively. It's $24.49 English full audio. We'll have to certainly think about whether or not I would want to play Edge of Eternity, because playing this might be the right example to get away from playing something old like Dragon's Age or playing a Final Fantasy game. It's single player only, English full audio. No full Japanese audio though, so seems like it's more targeted to the English audience than the Japanese, or maybe they just still are at a point where Japanese fans don't really need voice acting in their JRPGs. that has been certainly the case in the past, where they've been more than willing to just let it slide. Let's see. Play this.
Windless child, let the heavens be your shepherd. You're kidding me. The miasma pervades all.
Here we have Car Mechanic Simulator on Steam, VR version. It's mostly negative already. It's a shame because this is kind of what I would want. Maybe not in VR, but I'd want a game that would let me in a safe, danger-free environment learn how to fix cars. Although at this point, I'm never going to work on a car, and but it'd be interesting to learn. So let's see what the negativity is about. I suspect maybe it crashes. It's buggy. Loud music with no audio options. Unplayable on the HTC Vive and controllers. Bindings make sense. Loved the desktop one. No audio options. Like a completely way too early for prime time game. Whereas if you were to come back to Car Mechanic Simulator, you I guess now have to buy it with the VR bundle. 2018. Yeah, the non-VR version is 89% positive. And since I don't have a VR headset, yeah. And it having a number in its name is kind of a shame, because it would be better if it didn't have a number in its name and you were instead it was just called Car Mechanic Simulator. I probably would get bored with a Car Mechanic Simulator game after a while too, though, so I'd probably want to rush through the missions and just be done with it fairly quickly. Here we have a game called Snake Man's Adventure, which is clearly a low effort platforming joke game. $14.99, bunch of languages. This is not even one of the decks that I needed to get a win on. Here we have Four Kings Video Poker, which honestly there aren't that many good video poker games on Steam. So $1.99, no in-app purchases, bunch of languages. This might very well deserve a follow, so we'll put it on the follow list, and we'll see what other people have to say about it. Let's see, Kimetsu has Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance gameplay overview trailer. Let's see if we can watch that. Nope, we can't. The Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne HD Remaster Director Message introduces DLC, which looks like Dante from Devil May Cry. Maybe that's supposed to be Dante, maybe it isn't. Let's see. The Devolver Digital's press conference for E3 will be June 12th at 1:30 p.m. So yeah, E3 is starting Monday. Which that's kind of great for me because that, if anything, makes me feel like I'm going to be able to get away with a light week next week as far as video game news. That'd be appreciated. Let's see. Gaming Bolt says EA's 2021 update schedule confirms specific timings for Gearbox and Bandai Namco presentations. Gearbox's is at 2 p.m. on the 12th. Namco is 2:25 p.m. on the 15th.
Colts has come in every shade imaginable.
There we go.
I am beyond prophecy.
And that concludes today's sermon.
Apparently, according to Gaming Bolt, Tale of Arise PS5 download size is a little over 37 gigabytes. These games are getting really, really big.
Music to your
Like
ears,
that,
am I right?
we're talking potentially a double layer Blu-ray to hold all that data, and that's the update. So it's pretty much downloading everything again. We're going to hit a point where we are back to the old days of getting multiple discs per game, unless we figure out a way to compress more unless we figure out a way to get more space on Blu-rays.
I will rise.
Let's see. According to Game Bolt, Lost Judgment's simultaneous global launch has, quote, tripled the struggles for the entire development staff. Okay. Well, that seems like that was a bad decision then. Let's go ahead and evolve here. See if we can.
Though I set, I will rise again.
See, here we have a game called Fast Food Mania 3D, which looks like it's just a match 3 game for $5.99, English and Russian. Nothing of interest there.
The path ends here.
Here we have Christmas Stories Puss in Boots Collector's Edition. I don't know why Puss in Boots would be a Christmas story. It's a Big Fish game, hidden object game for $8.99. Jeez, I wonder if we are just going to start seeing all of the Big Fish games at a cheaper price. And I guess the real question is, are there older games at a cheaper price? Seems like it. Seems like they've gone back and reduced all the prices of their games down to $9.99. Which that is definitely the right move. Here we have a game called My Psychologist Bot Assistant. I played a mobile game that was somewhat like that. This is tagged as a visual novel. $2.60, bunch of languages. To me it looks like a low effort, just asset flip game trying to sell itself as something interesting. Here we have a game called Big Bang West, which Looks like it might be a resource building city manager. They're calling it a casual RPG. Yeah, I don't know why I would want to build a city that's an old-time Western city more than any other kind of city builder game. $4.24, allegedly English full audio. We want to be able to draw a card. Here we have a game on Steam called Remains, which looks like a crafting survival game in space. Kind of like if you were to take Subnautica and put it in space. It's not the worst idea ever. It just visually doesn't feel as polished as Subnautica. $5.99, bunch of languages. Yeah. I'm not really a huge fan of space anyways.
I'll get production up and running.
And a survival game in space just sounds like a great way to have everybody die in space. Here we have a game called Deepest Sword. And the problem with this game is I've seen it all the way played through, and it's like 5 minutes worth of gameplay, 10 minutes worth of gameplay. It's free. It was made during a game jam. The gimmick is you get to the sword, the dragon makes a lewd comment, and then you try and wiggle the sword down into this crack, and then the dragon burns you, and then the sword gets made larger by a magician, and you have to then maneuver yourself through a slightly increasing length of levels to get back to the dragon. So it's kind of like a puzzle co-op style game, but it's super short. And yeah. So as a free game, check it out if you're interested. You won't spend more than 10 minutes on it, if that matters to you.
Did I predict wrong?
Right.
I get the gist of it.
That.
I get the
No.
gist of it.
Here we have a game called Dragon Rising, which looks like it's a match 3 type game. They're calling it a farming sim. It seems to be lacking a little bit of visual polish. Looks like it's kind of like a girl game, but a girl focused or targeted clicker experience. Although it has levels, so it feels like the match 3 element probably is not so randomized. $18.99 English and Chinese. That's just way too expensive for that. Do this, and then I want to do that.
Small things in life.
And then guess I want to do this.
I get the gist of it.
Attack here,
I get the gist of it.
and attack there. See, TechRaptor has an article, so we're still having to go to TechRaptor for a few articles. According to the Cyberpunk 2077 source code that was stolen, well, I think it was stolen or leaked. It reportedly tags Chinese censorship as quote Winnie the Pooh, which, all right. Yeah, in the code, which, okay, whatever. I guess that's an internal political statement not designed to be actually shared with anybody externally, so unless they were going to
get the gist of it.
go out of their way
Useless.
to
I get the gist of it.
make outward comments,
Useless.
I don't think it's really worth your efforts to care about what is said behind closed doors. Okay. That. And then
Begin.
that.
Gotcha.
There also was a compilation, a bug compilation that apparently was also leaked, showing off all the bugs, which does point out that at least one person in advertising Cyberpunk 2077 claimed they hadn't seen all those bugs. So if the bugs they were talking about are the bugs that are on the compilation, then that person who was speaking would have had to then claim that they didn't see that compilation video. Otherwise, it does seem like it's fairly normal for allied artifacts with different names. Okay.
Sleep.
TechRaptor has an article. Google Stadia Chromecast release is coming to Android devices. Android TV devices. Which I guess that's video game related? Slightly. I'm just getting nowhere. It's one of those days. One of those days. Well, I guess I should say my network seems to be fine. I've slowly over the week, every time I see a slowdown, I've reduced the internet speed a little bit more, and now I am back under 100 megabits, even though it seemed like sometimes I could get 200 megabits, although I think some of that may just be QoS confusing things. I suppose it is very possible that 100 megabits is all I'm ever going to consistently be able to get. It's very possible is all I'm actually paying for. Like even finding that out on the ISP sites, so it's not something I've bothered to try and do. So yeah, may just have to live within my bounds and be happy with the QoS as it is. It seems to be working fine without any detailed or better setup. And I may very well have just been taught a very long and painful lesson in not getting blinded by the big number or the big payout, and instead taking the sure deal. It's like that TV show Let's Make a Deal. So many people are blinded by the possibility of what is behind door number 3 that they don't even consider that the right move is to take the $1,000 offer. Here we have a game on Steam called Quickly Quackly, which looks like it's a frustration platformer game. Yeah, that seems like something that I would definitely not enjoy playing. Let's see, $4.49 English only. I imagine there's some speedrunners out there that might very well enjoy this, and it's not the best graphics ever, but it looks alright.
I'll get production up and running.
In the turn. Here we have a game called V-Danage,
Your defeat was foretold.
which just looks like a VR collection of things. English is not supported, free to play, French only. Yep. I think you can do better than this though if you're going to have VR pictures and artwork and interactive movies instead of just having them floating in the air. That seems unnecessary.
I get the gist of it.
No!
Still trying to play and still trying to win. Here we have a game called Axiom Alternative 2, which is apparently a visual novel.
Useless.
Doesn't look particularly interesting.
Someone as beautiful as her could never
59
understand.
cents, English only. Here we have something in Asian characters, Grayscale Memories, which looks like it's a collection of mini games. And while it does look visually different, doesn't look like a real game. $2.99, Chinese only. Right. Let's see. Paradigm shift in hand.
Howl cyclones! Devour the
Stay
land!
away from me.
Here we have a game called Super Go Bang.
Your very
Oh,
existence
speaking
disproves
of Japanese things, apparently the factory that Nintendo wants to turn into a museum is their old Hanafuda card manufacturing factory. So they already own the facility, which might explain some things. It's $1.99. This game is English and Chinese. It looks like nothing. That certainly got my imagination racing that maybe they had some buried gold in the factory floors and they didn't want to sell the building because of that. And thus they want to turn it into a museum. I doubt that's really the case. I bet there's a much more benign, simple explanation,
Smells like this every millennium.
such as it just being something they can invest in.
I am the acme of genius. The master inventor. I do believe we have a case. You smell suspicious.
Watch
A
this.
full frontal attack?
Are you some sort of imbecile?
Neutral portocraft. This card does absolutely nothing. Well, here we have a game on Steam called Hell Architect Prologue, which catches my attention in that it might very well be a 2D flat dungeon keeper type game. Maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. There seems to be a lot of nudity going on in this game, although it's cartoonish nudity. They're calling it a colony sim city builder. English full audio. If they can get the art right on it, that might work. But on the other hand, if they get it wrong, it'll just be a boring city builder. looking at the actual game and not the prologue, all the characters have little fig leaves, but are naked. But the demons don't have fig leaves, and the genitals are showing. Which, yeah. Well, and then one of the screenshots has humans naked. Yeah. I don't know. You might get in trouble with YouTube if you're consistently covering a game like this, and it's just constantly putting naked cartoony characters wandering around in hell. Barrier, Bane and Ward. So yeah, I'll put the main game on the fall list and we'll see if it ever comes out. Here we have a game on Steam called Unicorn and Sweets, which is just a match 3 game. Doesn't look terrible, but doesn't look particularly unique either. $5.99, English and Russian. Here we have a game called Typebot Invasion, the Typing Runner, which I think I've seen better typing games than this. And frankly, that's very distracting to have these bright neon. Yeah, it's very distracting to have the bright neon colors. I'm also noticing one of the words here is Jew, which is an odd word to have people type. Certainly. $1.59 English, Portuguese, Brazil. Okay. Supposed to do this. Russian drain. If I was to make a copy of this, and then make a copy of that. Try and evolve this. Still gonna lose. Here we have a game on Steam called The Remainder, which is tagged as a hand-drawn visual novel. Actually looks pretty good. This looks like somebody that can actually draw. Like, so often we have just awful animation and drawing abilities, and like this has to go on the fall list just for the fact that there's actual art here. A serialized visual novel, though, is questionable. It's free. Single player, English only. I guess Act 2 is coming out in July, so maybe they broke the first act is free and then the second act is gonna actually charge money. We have Mystery Solitaire Powerful Alchemist, which just looks like a solitaire game. We don't see too many of those these days, and thank goodness. $2.99. Yep. Yeah, they've really spread out the variety as far as the different kinds of bad games that get released on Steam. Here we have one called Melodramatica, which looks interesting.
Pointed response.
Is it a point and click adventure game?
Enhance. Fire.
I don't know. It's free, it's English only. I want to see some reviews on this game, but it being free makes it very hard for me to ever think about playing it. It's from a college group of students, So this might very well fall under the category of a student project. Yeah, that's where I can make the justification to put it on the wish list, actually. Is I can just say, this is a student project, thus it goes on the wish list. Since it's free, since it's students. Here we have a game called Expert on Domestication, which looks like nothing. English is not supported. Chinese only, $3.59. Here we have a game called Beat Boy, which doesn't look like anything. $4.99.
Like this every moment.
Game Bolt says Call of Duty Vanguard won't be revealed at E3, and Warzone's plans have been detailed, but this is a rumor. So why am I talking about rumors? Because they put the word rumor after all the other words.
What? Impossible.
Let's see. Gaming Bolt has Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance, trailer outlines story, character abilities, and more. Let's see what this looks like. There might be a game here. I guess I would say the Dungeons and Dragons universe has probably got more games that this tried to make that were good versus Warhammer 40k. Let's see. Gaming Bolt says Battlefield 2042 will cost $70 on the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. Gold and Ultimate Editions are revealed. So they're going to be charging quite the premium for that game. Wrath count, drain.
Pain and suffering are what I live for.
$70 is particularly expensive when when Battlefield 2042 won't have a single player campaign or battle royale features. That's asking a lot. Now, we have to also remember that the last Battlefield game was the one that sold particularly terribly and had the controversy around it.
Mankind's tenacity will exterminate you, vermin.
I won't hurt you too much.
See if we can
Scatter like the blossom.
actually evolve here.
Oh my, this as promised.
Gaming Bolt has an article here saying that Battlefield 2042 has an undisclosed multiplayer mode. I guess undisclosed is probably the name of it. Developed by DICE LA, and it's going to be revealed at the EA Play Live, which is different from the article before that said it wasn't going to have single player. Well, I guess maybe undisclosed is a different type of multiplayer than versus the regular multiplayer. Let's see. They also have the multiplayer maps detailed, including the new largest map in the series, which, like, no duh, the map should get bigger every new iteration. Although it may not really change much as far as how much is actually going on in the game if the map is slightly bigger.
Just say the word. Are you as excited as I am? Well, are you? I'm gonna scoop out your guts.
You don't belong here.
I'm so excited.
That's dead. Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Last Boss. Sorry, I'm going quiet again. I don't feel incredibly sleepy right now, but I'm probably getting close to it. $1.99 this game is, English and Japanese, nothing of interest there. Here we have Command and Control, specifically designed for name confusion around Command and Conquer, and it's called Command and Control 3. I'm not sure if there was a Command and Control 2. It's $16.99. It's English and Russian. It's from CNC Game Studio. Yeah. There's definitely some deceptiveness there. This. And then what do we want to do here? Probably this.
Fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
Then this.
Allow me to bestow a crimson kiss. Melt under my touch.
I'm so useless.
I guess I could have evolved that for a little bit more health. Here we have a game called Mad Mustache, which is a top-down twin-stick shooter of no interest. $2.39, English and Russian. Here we have a game called Build 'em Faster, which looks like it is a pirate-themed tower defense hex grid game for $5.99. Yeah, I don't think there's anything there of interest.
We're going full throttle.
Hi. Interesting. I can see the beginning of the end.
Delightful.
Here we have a game called Solar Scion, which just looks like a space shoot-em-up game.
Up and running.
Let's see, $9.99. Nothing there. English, allegedly full audio. Okay. Destroy an enemy follower.
With this payment, darkness stands with you. Pain and suffering are what I live for.
Okay.
Your head and body must part ways.
Hunger is sharper than freshness guaranteed.
TechRaptor has an article. Ubisoft CEO bonus shifts away from gender diversity goals.
Systems stand by.
They've replaced it with a company's carbon, a goal of reducing the company's carbon footprint, which arguably is maybe
Like the
an
moon
argument
on the
that
water's
they feel like they've reached their goals, or at least they're going to try and make that argument that they've reached their goals. Also, in weird video game news, it seems to me like one of the crazy people who bought lots and lots and lots of GameStop stock has been voted via shareholders meeting to be the new chairman of GameStop, and seems to be very much on their way to being the new CEO of GameStop. And that's certainly what I thought was going to happen, is that if you've got enough money to convince enough people to buy shares in a company, at a certain point you're going to get a seat on the board, or you're going to be in charge of the place. And so then the next part of the question definitely comes down to, does this crazy person who pulled off this crazy coup to basically rip GameStop at least partially away from the hands of investors, that the same investors that ran Toys R Us into the ground. That's great and all, but now the question is, how does he fix the problem of GameStop? How do you make that? How do you make GameStop viable in the middle of a pandemic or coming out of a pandemic? How do you turn those stores around? How do you get people to go and buy games in a store? Those are all the questions without lots of answers or easy answers.
You don't belong here.
Let's see. Gametsu has a Wanyan pet shop, Kawaii, pet to Fureu Manichi, debut trailer in Japanese TV. Well, I don't know what Wan means, but Nyan is probably what the sound of a cat makes. Pet shop always is English. Kawaii means cute, so cute pet to Furry Manichi. I don't know what that is. This definitely looks like one of these Switch kids games that come out in Japan and don't make its way to the West. Although this doesn't look bad by any means. It's like a fine little clone of a Nintendo Cats and Dogs game. Just try and fuse everything with this. And then
Hands up.
in return, see, did we decide to make a chest bundle on the fall list? I think we did. This is from the 7th. In fact, this was the game that I was using as a marker in my mind.
Prisoner of this world's whims.
Yeah, put that on the fall list. This is $3.99 English one. It might work as an idea, it might not. Yeah, we were going to put Scamper on the fall list. So some of these games are also things that I had already talked about. Here we have a game on Steam called Blade Assault, which I probably already talked about too. Looks like it might be an interesting beat 'em up. Early access $15.29. It's fairly expensive, several languages. I'll put that on the fall list.
Please, no more.
Same. TechRaptor has an article here. A visual novel voice actor was fired for saying Taiwan as a country. This is voice actor Jonah Scott was removed from the Chinese visual novel Mr. Love, Queen's Choice.
Do what I want.
Which,
No
yep,
holding
this
back.
is really, really ridiculous that this argument and this propaganda is still getting pushed by the Chinese government in particular, and anyone that's kowtowing to it at all.
Must become a demon to kill a demon.
Which I guess at a certain point, China's annexation of Taiwan is a massive scale propaganda effort more than an actual invasion. The invasion will come later, I'm sure.
I do not fear death.
I am a prisoner of this world's whims.
Well, this will have me draw cards. Techraptor has changes coming to Magic the Gathering's universes beyond. So apparently
Ways of this world change at night.
they're making some big changes. I don't know if this just has to do with them advertising a Walking Dead special card, or if there's anything more to it. I'm very much out of the field as far as Magic the Gathering, but you can check out that article if you're interested. You probably already know what's going on now. Right, so if you do that, then did this,
Is it edible? Only one way to
and
find
then
out.
this,
Uncharted desert awaits.
and
Scatter like the blossom.
I would have needed one more.
I'm ready for more. What do we
I
have
would
here?
have needed one more
I guess
mana
I wasn't good
orb.
enough.
Techraptor
Moon on the water's surface.
has an article. A Doom 2 auction lets you buy John Romero's stuff. He's auctioning his old stuff off, which is either the or indication that he is running out of space or running out of money. Of course, you could certainly pull an Indiana Jones argument and say these belong in a museum, not in private collector or random people's hands. So we are in the process at the moment of trying to get away from Techraptor as a news source. We are failing fairly miserably at the moment to do that. The reason I will mention it again that I'm trying to get away from Techraptor as a news source is because they embraced a very pro-censorship, self-censorship stance and have decided to delete nearly 20% of all their old articles, claiming they don't live up to their journalistic standards. Was, I think, exactly what they said. I don't think I'm mischaracterizing that at all. That the old articles did not live up to their journalistic standards. But the vast majority of what seems to have been removed and seems to be just sweepingly searched and deleted from the site was their coverage of Gamergate, which Techraptor was one of the few websites that seemed to properly report on Gamergate instead of promoting just propaganda against it or putting outright falsehoods out. But let's just focus specifically on journalistic standards. First of all, how do you have journalistic standards if you are pro censorship? You don't have any in my book. But second of all, Techraptor has been notorious as being in sponsorship advertisements of Nutaku games, and I'm not here to kink shame at all. Nutaku is the video game company owned by the same parent company that owns Pornhub, and I thought, well, maybe they're changing their standards so they wouldn't advertise Nutaku games anymore. Nope, here we go, a brand new article. Eros Fantasy is Nutaku's new auto battler with well-endowed waifus. A lot of bikini-clad games. I will say that the Nutaku games overall seem to be pretty bad. Not really worth playing. But I'm not talking about this because I'm talking about the new Nutaku game. I'm talking about this because the journalistic integrity, journalistic standard. This is an article written by a senior writer, by the way. So your standard is you can have games and sponsored content that's only disclosed at the very bottom. It participates in an affiliate linking program. Some of the links in this article are affiliated, but yeah, they're fine about talking about Nutaku games and adult games. Again, not the king shaming, but anything that says Gamergate in total is sweepingly, without even really being reevaluated, removed from your site. That just comes off as your anti-ethics and games journalism now, and and just still fighting the ashes of, like, fighting the big boogeyman of Gamergate as if it was ever anything with any real power. The only thing Gamergate really succeeded at is informing a lot of video game review readers to realize just how corrupt a lot of mainstream video game critics are and how bad they are at being journalists. And also, some of them are just bad at being human beings. Well, that was one victory. Didn't really deserve it. So yeah, I am still trying to get away from TechRaptor because I have no business and no desire to give them my time or my business when they've crossed that Rubicon. Kimetsu has an article, Crayon Shinchan or ta Hakase no Natsuyasumi or Nano Kakan no Taibai storefront trailer is available. Which, yeah, I doubt this Crayon Shinchan game is coming to the West. It is a, if I recall correctly, kind of a summer vacation slice of life game. I don't know how popular Crayon Shinchan is even these days. But yeah, it looks like there might be enough game there. Let's see. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And then Moshi Kachite Obake no Shate Kiya for Nintendo Switch has a debut trailer and Japanese TV commercial. Is this the... Yeah, this is the game that's like based on old Japanese myths. Seems to be a collection of mini games as far as old Japanese mythological monsters. Seems to be a shooting game. This is not the game I was thinking of, I don't think, because I was thinking there was a very different game. A Switch game where there's a shooting gallery. That's something. They were pointing the controls to the TV, which makes me wonder if there's some way that the TV can recognize that the controller is being pointed at a specific thing, or if you have to have a infrared transmission bar such as the Nintendo Wii had. Honestly, if Nintendo was still making the Wii bars, that would bring several Wiis back into life, because the tiny wire was very easy to get caught or cut on the Wii bar. Of course, you could build your own. You could use a couple candles even, because it's just an infrared light transmitting on one side and the other. Let's see, put this in your hand. Do this. Do this. Put this in your hand. Do this.
Watch this. You wouldn't.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Voxel Printer, which seems like it's a low effort sandbox game. $3.19, English only. I have no interest in that.
I'll get production up and running.
Let's see.
Watch this.
See, next we have a game on Steam called Dreams and Nightmares, which seems like nothing. Top-down shooter. It's labeled as a dungeon crawler. It's a free Christian multiplayer game hosted by GDC.
You're done for.
English, French, traditional Chinese, and Latin America. That's a weird. That's a weird combination of languages. GDC.
What? Impossible.
CGDC, not GDC. CDC. Community gaming. Well, like most things that are labeled Christian, first and foremost, the actual content looks lacking. So yeah, nothing there of interest. Plus, I wouldn't want to step into the potential mess of playing a religious themed game and then as a video game critic criticizing a religious themed game.
You'll find gizmos like this every millennium.
Begin.
I am the acme of genius.
Didn't do this.
Master inventor. We have a case.
I
Didn't
get
do
the
this.
gist of it.
Time to retreat!
Watch
Didn't do
this.
that.
We will greet the new dawn. You smell suspicious.
Time to retreat!
And that.
Time to retreat!
Next, we have a game on Steam called Dark Abyss, which looks like it's a platformer. It doesn't look very visually polished enough. Looks like it's probably a Chinese game. Early access, Chinese only. How much is it? $1.19.
It won't be long now. Dawn always prevails upon the dawn.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Endless Crawler, which
I'm here.
looks like nothing. $1.79 English and Russian. Here we have a game called Universe for Sale Prologue. Hand-drawn narrative game. Nope, not interested in the prologue, but maybe the real game when it comes out will make it to the fall list. It says English Italian. I don't get too many English Italian games. Let's see, well, we could do this. Or what? We could crystallize this. Let's do this.
Sleep.
Hit that.
We will greet the new
And
dawn.
that.
Time to retreat!
And that.
Time to retreat!
See, next we have a game called Hack Bomb Bomia. Just looks like a Bomberman clone of no quality. $2.99 English only. Here we have something called Apple Bang, which looks like it's some anime characters just asset flipped into a nothing game.
All right, troops, get ready for war.
$1.79, whole bunch of languages. Definitely doesn't look like there's anything there. Next we have a game called Superbot.
Grant them courage.
Seems like it's a robot walking around. Not sure there's a game here, but it does have a certain high level of visual polish to it. There might be a game here. English only, $7.19. Guess I have to put that on the follow list. Okay. Now. Do this. Do this. Seriously? What was I thinking? That was totally the wrong card to play. Next we have a game on Steam called Mighty Goose, which looks like it's a side-scrolling shooter with some platforming. Oh, we've got some screenshots that weren't loading, but everything else was loading fine. I did enable the the loading of pages function. I tried to enable it, so like I could be wasting a ton of internet bandwidth just to have faster loading of things, but whatever. It's working. And I'm not running into a huge amount of pages taking forever. Although I'm still running into a few pages, sometimes getting DNS errors. But honestly, that may just be the price of admission for using different DNS servers. Mighty Goose is $19.99. Yeah, it deserves a follow. I feel like I'm just saying on everything. Oh no.
Foul forces
Doomed.
of darkness, bow before my tempest.
What you need is a
Next we have a game on Steam called Lost Epic, which looks like a nicely animated hack and slash game. It's mostly positive. Early access, Japanese full audio, English and Chinese, otherwise $16.99. Well, it's early access, so it goes on the follow list, but otherwise this does look very interesting. And this is from a developer I don't recognize. They've made a game called Earth's Dawn, and then they have Lost Epic and Lost Epic soundtrack. This will probably be our last attempt today to get anything done, or to get any victories. Here we have a game on Steam called Another Eye, which looks like a horror game. Probably a horror asset flip adventure game. $9.99 English only. I'll give it a chance though. Like, you never know. Some of these might be better than they seem. Here we have one called Palladium Adventure in Greece. which
Lots of bones,
looks
but make it fashion.
fairly low polygon. Well, no, I don't know what you describe this. It's just off-putting, that model that is. I would suspect that there's nothing to this game. $7.39 English and Russian. But out of an abundance of caution, I'll put it on the fall list and see if it gets any reviews.
I'll get production up and running.
Let's see. Here we have Live in Dungeon, which I think we had heard about this. Is this in English? No, it isn't. $8.49, Japanese only. I guess I do sometimes remember something that I could remember that wasn't in English. Let's see, playing that. And we'll end the turn there. Here we have the Last Kids on Earth, Staff of Doom. I could probably reload this and see if it's getting any more reviews. Guess it doesn't. Interesting. I'm not sure how popular any kid show really is. I know this is a Netflix cartoon series, probably based on books. So I think there's a high chance of a lot of kids trying out this game. It's $39.99, which is a massive expense, certainly. But heck, it deserves a follow. I'm constantly looking for I'm constantly looking for the replacement, or whatever replacement might occur for the Lego games, since I've played most of the Lego games at this point. Here we have a game called Just 15 Minutes, which looks like it's a platforming game. Frustration platformer, precision platformer. 59 cents, English only.
We can finally be reunited.
Here we have a game called ISO Cubes, which doesn't look like anything of interest.
Ladies and gentlegoats,
It's $1.19, bunch of languages.
There is no retreat.
Next we have a game called Why Not, which looks like it's a horror game. Which, once again, horror games nowadays look so good, but often are terrible. This is $1.39, English only. I have to put it on the fall list. That there's just a chance. And that's all it really takes, is just a little chance that a game might be good.
It's the small things in life.
Begin.
Listen, nothing in this gotcha.
That.
yeah, I love this stuff. Of course I do.
See, next we have a game called Chained, which I don't know what kind of game this really is. Some kind of pixely hacking simulation game. Solve puzzles, hack accounts, stop at the field of cybersecurity from being taken over by an evolving AI system. $4.49, English full audio. I just don't think that there's a real game here I would want to play. And probably not an interesting story either. Here we have a game called Wild Rat, which seems like you're literally just trying to hit this rat as many times as possible, and that's all the game is. Avoid the blades, hit the rat. maybe you die if the rat touches you, but the rat is speeding up every time.
There's no retreat.
I guess eventually you put down a mouse trap. $1.79 English Russian. Nothing there of interest. Right. Do this. And then this. Then
I'll get
this.
production up and running.
Sleep.
There's no other way. There's no retreat.
Here we have a game called Astro Aqua Kitty, which looks like it's a shoot 'em up game. Looks fairly visually polished, though. I guess at a certain point you could think of Star Fox as a shoot 'em up game too. It's just done in such a unique way that I wouldn't ever really describe it that way. This is already rated positive. It's $14.99 English only. I think we put that on the follow list. Get some more reviews. Here we have a game called Sabre Team from 1992. Another one of these older games being released by Ziggurat, or re-released by Ziggurat. At a certain point, Ziggurat may just re-release all the old games. I actually was going through what I thought were music CDs and turned out to be PC CDs, and I'm like, oh yeah, here's a whole bunch of games that I played many years ago on CDs. I heavily question whether if I put them in a CD-ROM I could really read the discs. They're probably all severely scratched. But also, even if I could read the discs, at a certain point all I would at that point want to do is make disc images and backups, if that's even a necessity.
Oh, guinea pigs, where are you?
And I suspect heavily that none of the games I have would particularly run on Windows 10 without a lot of effort.
I love this job. Of course I do.
Foul forces of darkness, bow before my tempest.
I imagine these Ziggurat games that are getting released are DOSBox games or things that would have run on Windows 95 and DOS, or just conveniently still work somehow. Here we have a game called Devoul, D-E-V-O-U-L, Curse of the Soulless. It doesn't look visually animated well enough. Plus it seems like it's all over the place. $13.49 English only. This is the point where I'm going to realize I've been trying for the wrong thing all day. Here we have a game called Bonhomme 7 Hours, or 7 Heures, Heures, which Bonhomme sounds French. Free, English only. So, nothing there of interest. Okay. And then that brings me back to my Twitter feed. So let's see what new news has happened in 3 hours and 20 minutes, and then we can call it a day. Let's see. A game called Metal Unit launches for Switch next week, according to Gaming Bolt. Let's see. A new PS5 update fixes stability issues and DualSense battery indicator, according to Gaming Bolt. I'm just going to read out these articles instead of showing them off. see. According to Gaming Bolt, Overwatch will receive crossplay on all platformers. Yep, I got basically one ranked match. Yep, and I was doing the right thing, trying to get Bloodcraft or Portalcraft victories. I just don't have any Bloodcraft or Portalcraft decks that can win. Of course, I could get unranked and unranked and then only have to worry about the ranked victories. It would have made sense for me to switch over to unranked and try and get victories that way. Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Ratchet and Clank, and Rivet costumes are coming June June 11th. To what game is that really going to, though? Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate fixes the textures on Cloud's door, which apparently were broken. Watchdog Legion's Bloodline story trailer confirmed for Ubisoft Forward. Battlefield 2042 will have reduced map sizes on the PS4 and Xbox One. Let's see. It also has a climate change narrative premise that has nothing to do with social commentary, according to the developers. It's funny in one breath to say this is the biggest map ever, but then to say that the old generation of consoles aren't going to be able to engage in that. So, yeah. In Sumo Digital Platformer. I didn't even know this game existed. Sackboy: A Big Adventure. When did this come out? Wow. That's a fairly big game for me not to have heard about at all. Let's see. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article. An investment group is saying that excessive bonuses have rendered the Activision Blizzard CEO's pay cut moot. Which, yeah, I suspect that's probably what happens a lot of times when a CEO says they're cutting their own pay cut. Is that they're getting the money some other way, whether it's selling stocks or bonuses. See, I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed looking for any last bit of information, which really means I'm scrolling down 5 Twitter feeds. Yep. 5 years in, Blizzard announces crossplay for Overwatch, according to Gamma Sutra. I think we already talked about it. Is there any other bits of news? Sorry, I'm reading slow today. Been slow all day. Mentally, I guess. I will say I still feel like my insomnia is pushing me very much towards being awake at absolutely the wrong times. Particularly for the summer time, it would be more helpful to go the other direction and fall asleep a little bit earlier and fall asleep at like well, if I could start streaming at 10 and end at 1 instead of starting streaming at noon, that wouldn't really help that much. Yeah. The idea of sleeping all day to sleep away the summer heat just does not work if you also want to be awake and streaming 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. No, not any, no games. As far as Destructoid's involvement, I think we can probably stop using Destructoid as a news source. That they didn't have anything new to say of any real value. Apparently Hearthstone is shaking up the Battlegrounds pool and nerfed Paladins, which I don't know who's playing. Apparently the Fatal Fury animated from the 90s is getting a new Blu-ray release, which that probably doesn't really mean anything. A lot of animes get new releases. Sometimes they get Blu-ray releases and they don't even have high resolution source material in the first place. 8 hours ago, apparently Nintendo suspended the distribution of System Update 12.0.3. It must have been a bug they didn't catch. I'm looking at Destructoid right now to see if there's enough news here. I think the answer is no. Yeah, Destructoid doesn't have any useful bits of articles. It's never easy, though, certainly, to get rid of a news source, because every site's going to have at least one thing. Like, one thing that's slightly different. So, still scrolling down. One more feed to check. Okay, yeah. Is there anything we really want to talk about? Suppose it's important to talk about these articles. Gamma Sutra has an obituary for the Zenobi software founder and text adventure legend John Wilson. I don't know what games he made. Let's see. Yeah, I don't recognize any of these games that he worked on, but I didn't play a lot of ZX Spectrum games either. And let's see. Yeah, I guess we're done. Let's just wrap up here. There's nothing else that needs to be talked about. Oh wait, I'm already showing this, am I not? Alright, we'll cover this story since I'm already showing it. A 2D action platformer Metal Unit for Switch launches June 17th. Yeah. So we'll check that out. I thought it was on the other screen, and I was like, yeah, I don't really need to talk about a game. Just a random game, but yeah. I really wonder how many times I have the web peak just on the wrong screen. It seems like I probably do it more often than I think. Anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos because that helps me with YouTube. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.